Hey everyone, welcome to Femme Fables. Megan here, and we're on part two with Leah. Hopefully you call it part one. If you haven't, go watch that because that's going to link to this part two. But talking about mental health, identity, sexual identity, and relationships. So part one was kind of Leah taking us through adolescence and her story, through like being a young adult, and now we're going to kind of get into adulthood and kind of how your lessons shaped you in relationships and kind of making a better partner and finding a healthy partner for yourself. So where do you want to pick up?
So yeah, I have to say, for many years, I wanted to find my person, that person that would see me and get me and would love me and I would love back, and I yearned for it. And I dated a lot and came across situations where I thought I found it, but it wasn't there, and then I tried to make it work, but you can't force things, obviously. But something someone said to me that was really powerful is, that saying, like, he or she's my better half.
Yep.
Yeah, like, two half people don't make a whole relationship. Really, it is, at the end of the day, two whole people coming together. Granted, as humans, like, I'm never, like, there's always going to be a thing here and there that I'm dealing with, but for the most part, I do feel whole. I'm human. I have insecurities still, but I do have a good grasp and understanding of it, and I am much more stable. But yeah, I do feel like I can come to relationships now much more whole.
Yeah, and that's, you said that to me off camera before we started, and I was just like mind blown because I've never heard anybody say that. And I think I've indicated it a little bit in my podcast about, like, you have to be happy within yourself and fully comfortable and confident within yourself. You can't expect somebody to come in and fill the voids that you haven't worked on. And it's kind of the same thing, right? Two halves don't make a whole. You have to be a whole person. They have to be a whole person, and then you come together because you got to be able to work on things and talk about things. So yeah, I thought that was a really good. That was an aha moment for me. I was like, oh yeah, like that makes complete sense. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and I think part of, when I say wholeness, for example, part of wholeness, I believe, is having some self-awareness of what your triggers are, what you may be bringing to relationships. At the end of the day, I yearn for relationships so much, but I had no idea that I wasn't emotionally available.
Yeah.
I would want it, but for example, I remember one person I really liked a lot. I would say the first date said, I'm not looking for a relationship. And I'm like, in my head, ding, ding, like I was envisioning the future, all that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, when there were people who are like, I am very interested in you, I want to invest, like, there was something less appealing about that to me.
We want what we can't have, kind of thing, like the chase, the thrill of the chase.
Yes, and I think in a way it was safe because it actually wasn't like able to be a full-fledged relationship, and I wasn't.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like on a subconscious level, like you recognize this isn't probably something like, you know what I mean, solidified, so I'm safe here, versus the ones that were probably going to be a solid relationship. You're like, because you weren't ready. Like,
yeah, you make excuses for the red flags, or like you're trying to make something work that's actually not really naturally working. Like, yeah, doing all the things that weren't creating the kind of relationship I was idealizing.
Yeah, right.
So, but yeah, I feel like for the first time in my life, I actually have found the kind of beautifully imperfect, healthy relationship. So, yeah.
So we talked in part one about that facility. Did that help you kind of shape, or were there other experiences when you lived in LA that kind of, how did you, like, when you went, like, the date and they're like, I'm not ready for a relationship, I'm assuming you kept seeing that person because you're like in your mind like, oh, they'll change their mind, they're gonna love me, they're gonna want, and I'm assuming it didn't pan out. So were those the lessons, or was there something, like counseling, you know what I mean? Like what like drove you to get to the point where you're like, okay, now I'm recognizing kind of.
Right. Yeah. Well, I will say that the two half people don't make one whole. Two halves don't make one whole relationship. That was the founder of the organization.
Okay. Yeah.
She was like me, where the relationship was the answer to everything. She felt like she wanted to fill a void, so she learned a lot of hard lessons before she found her person. So I did learn a lot from that. You know, yeah, I another powerful lesson is there was a point where I thought I did find that, even though there were red flags that showed, it isn't the best fit, but I sort of looked past it, and I did take a leap of faith and kind of lost everything because I knew inside it wasn't right. So I lost friends, I lost my place, I lost everything. And breakups are so uncomfortable. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Even when you're the person who ends it, they say, see, that's the thing is if you end a relationship, it is not easier.
Yeah. No, I've ended them and it probably hurt. I hurt longer than the one that I had that, and broke up with me. Like I was hurt, but not like seeing somebody else that you care about and love broken is tough because you still care for the person, but like it's
right.
Yeah, it's not easy even when you're the one breaking up with somebody. Like
right. And I think like just as important of finding a healthy relationship, like it's also so important to know when you need to leave a relationship, and try and leave it with as much integrity as you can and thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
People are going to be hurt, but also don't personalize their hurt too much. Like you don't want to be insensitive, but I guess like you don't want to be stuck in situations out of fear of hurting someone or, and yes, breakups are painful and they're difficult, but, it's this idea of like, the idea of brokenness. Sometimes brokenness, you can recreate something better. And after I left a relationship, I felt broken, like my life kind of broke. But
because you lost a lot, so that's even harder too.
And and also there's a friendship in a relationship. It's like they're your buddy and then they're not.
They're there for you. That's who you talk to when you get home or whatever, and then now that person's not there anymore.
Right. So all these ideas I had, and just but it was the right decision. It was uncomfortable. It was the best decision. And I'm just grateful I did because it led me to today, essentially.
What you said, recognizing early on is key. And I think that's key in dating, because I think when you want a relationship so badly, sometimes you overlook a lot of things and you try to make things work that probably wouldn't. And I have a friend who's gone out with a couple guys and, had a pretty decent amount of time dating them. And she was like, I'm not seeing so-and-so anymore. And I was like, well, what happened? And she told me, the things she picked up on. And I'm like, I'm really proud of you for recognizing that and walking away early, versus people would just be like, oh, I really enjoy this person's company, or we have great sex, and that's all it really is. But they want to control what I wear when I go out of the house, or they make a comment about, you're really going to eat that donut. You know what I mean? And those are the things like she was telling me. And I was like, okay, well, that's a level of emotional abuse and like kind of manipulation. That's not good. But I think people can overlook that really easily, especially when you have a sexual connection with somebody. Like that can...
when you get the chemicals going, oh my gosh.
I have your brain just dies and like, it's not thinking, and you're just like,
Oh yeah. The blinders.
Oh yeah.
The blinders definitely go up.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. It's hard because like you could have amazing sexual chemistry and they're interesting and dynamic and you have fun talking to them. But if you have these things that line up, but a couple of the important things are not lining up, like don't let these shiny, sparkly things overshadow really important things. Like, are they respectful? How do you fight? Do you handle conflict well?
Yeah. Communication. How do you communicate? Yeah.
Do they care about what matters to you? Do they celebrate in, your successes? Or do they not actually really care, but they care about their successes? Or whatever, I think, I just want to say conflict, being able to have healthy conflict is a big.
And I will, I'll share personally, like in my last relationship, I was very jealous and I didn't handle things well in regards to my response. Like we were talking off camera about like, take a pause before you react. And
Right.
that was one of the things looking back that I feel like I learned a lot from was, maybe this person was intentionally triggering me to get that reaction so that I looked crazy and, what have you. But even at the end of the day, if that were the case, I still shouldn't have reacted that way. Like throwing my phone down because I'm pissed off, or you know what I mean? Like things that are like immature. But I recall a moment where I was just like sobbing, crying, and he got up to like pack his stuff and leave. Like not even acknowledge my pain, you know what I mean? And
Right.
those are the kind of things, like at the end of the day, like you said, how do you fight? How do you handle conflict? Like those are the things that make a relationship last, not the sexual chemistry is great, but yeah, what are the other foundations of a relationship and what do they bring? Like you said, I remember when I bought this house, and I know it's stupid, but I posted on Instagram and like he didn't even like it, and we're dating at the time, and I know that's stupid, like to not, to think about, but I remember him saying, he's like, well, I'm, congratulations, I'm kind of jealous that you have a house, you know what I mean? It was a weird. You think you would be like, oh my God, like that's so amazing, you're awesome, and the house is beautiful, can't, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, yeah.
Right. Be on the same page and see that they're actually invested
Mhm.
in your happiness. First, I just want to say, you described those moments of throwing the phone down or whatever. I just want to say those are normal. Granted, we look back and we think maybe we could have handled it
Yeah.
better, but one of the things we talked about was this like knight in shining armor or princess in shining armor, whatever you want to call it. And this just like idealization of relationships. And after you hit the honeymoon period where like the chemicals are overwhelming your brain and like jealousy issues, like everybody brings something to a relationship. Like I have my abandonment stuff that, I get defensive, like if I am feeling bad about something or whatever. And I think at the end of the day, like finding a relationship, even if it's earlier on when those moments pop up, there's like a normalization that everybody brings their stuff to the table, and a healthy relationship doesn't run from it. And I really believe that a healthy relationship is one who goes through these things, and it's a healing process for both because you're both invested in not walking away from each other, not being weirded out, like seeing the humanness in each other and realizing like you're good people and this is stuff from the past.
Yeah.
Like the stuff with the guy you threw the phone on, like that's your stuff from, could go back all the way to childhood.
Right.
And this is normal. So if you can find a person that when the chemicals die down and you're both with your stuff, you're like, you know what? I am going to see those things and I'm not going to hold it against you. And are you committed to walking through and healing these pieces together?
Yeah.
I really, I think that's key. And I've found that. And yeah, it's a healthy relationship isn't sparkly and perfect. It's human.
Yeah. And I was telling Leah off camera when we were talking about this, I think I talked on it when we were talking about a modern dating episode, like just dating current day. I don't think enough people recognize that people are going to come in with issues in a relationship, but they're a good person at their core. Like they mean well, you love this person or what have you, like you try to stick it out and work with them and try to work through whatever issues there may be. But because dating, especially with dating apps, you have so many people at your disposal, it's so easy to just walk away and be like, at the first sign, you're just like, nope, I don't want to deal with this because I could pick up my phone and have 5 more dates lined up next week,
Right, and like, here's the thing. I'm in a healthy relationship now. I met the woman of my dreams at the start of COVID. I was living in LA but working in Tampa, and I was with my parents all the time, right? just the three of us in the house, and I was like, I'm gonna put my feelers out and meet some people. And I met, I met somewhat like college professors, psychologists, smart, empathetic, like the full package, just amazing. And I just want to say, even with this person who fit my idealization of what I wanted, stuff came up eventually after the chemicals subsided. And we both went through this thing where all of a sudden we're like, is that a red flag? Is that a red flag? Like we'd get in conflict, and there was a mistrust between the two of us that would happen, and where we're questioning the relationship. And I think that what made this different was, well, first of all, I'm a believer in couples therapy.
I think people should go to couples therapy before they get married. Like,
if the relationship,
100%.
Absolutely.
I don't care if it's perfect. Like, I just still think like it's good to talk through like things, because there's gonna be things that happen,
Absolutely.
So did you guys do that?
Yeah, we did. And we were both committed to, like, we weren't wanting to jump ship or anything, but we just, like, when the relationship in conflict only exists in my head and her head, and there's not really a neutral outside person to say, hey, maybe look at this or try this. Like, we didn't have that. And eventually, we would look at those moments of distrust together with this therapist. We would unpack that, like, hey, maybe that upset with you the other day is very much tied to in high school when I felt bullied and abandoned, and it's not actually about you. And, we learned other lessons, like you mentioned, taking a pause. That is so important.
Yeah. I need to be better about that for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
It is so hard to take that pause and not be reactionary. But taking that pause can, like, help save a relationship, not to be drastic, but there's nothing wrong in saying, look, I'm very worked up right now. You're very worked up right now. I don't want to say anything that can, like, ruin,
right. Something I don't mean, right? Like, yeah.
Let's take a pause, simmer down, and then we'll come back together.
Yep.
And that's been a game changer for sure. Understanding all my past triggers, my traumas, like how it plays out in the relationship. And also, I think another piece is, if you're having a bad day, like as the partner, I think it's important to step it up. And, like, if I lash out at you, hopefully both of you aren't having a bad day.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Because probably not going to go great, but yes, we'll say usually it's one person having a bad day, like, at a time, normally, but it can happen. So yeah. So you lash out because you had a bad day.
Yeah, and the other person can sort of put, like, whoa, like, put my feelings aside, recognize they're having a bad day, and not take it personally. And maybe just feel out, like, hey, I see you're really upset. Is there something else going on? Or rather than feed into the anger.
Right. Feel like, oh, why,
right.
Calm the fuck down. Like, why are you yelling at me, or why are you snapping at me, or whatever? And I think a big thing I learned too was people's actions are a reflection of them, not of you. And I placed my value on how other people treated me. So if I got ghosted, I was like, what's wrong with me? Why wasn't I good enough to date? But now it's like, well, something's wrong with them, because that's not acceptable behavior. You know what I mean? If you chat with somebody on a dating app, and like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, like, you go on dates with a person, you're talking, and then they just disappear. Like, they're either a coward or, that talks about, so I had to learn that a lot, is that, or finding out my ex was dating somebody new. Like, why wasn't I good enough to be,
right,
the one that he worked through things with, versus, like, maybe it is easier with the person, maybe whatever, who knows? That's not my problem. Like, that's a reflection of him and what he wants, not a reflection of me and who I am, because I'm still all these things.
Right, and I think you bring up a point, like, I try to never ghost anybody. I think it's easy just to say, because, like, I know I've felt that before, like, what's wrong, what's wrong with me? Am I not good enough? I mean, but then again, like, when we meet someone, we have no idea. We just see the dating profile on the face, and we don't know the whole slew of problems that come or if she's grappling with. But just send a text and say, I'm not interested. I'm sorry. I wish you the best. Like, I really think.
It's so easy. I could rant about that for a while. I've done 2 podcasts on ghosting because I'm so like adamantly against it, because I think it's so easy just to be like, you know, I think you're a really great person. I'm just not feeling the chemistry. Like, I wish you all the best. You know, it's just so simple. I don't get it, but whatever. Anyways.
Yeah.
So how did you meet? I don't think you covered it. Yeah. Exactly how you met. You said you were meeting people, like you're with a parent trying to get out. So yeah, how exactly did you guys meet?
So Tinder.
Really?
We met at Tinder.
My best friend's married to a man from Tinder.
Yeah, you know.
I'm like, why am I not having you? Like, damn it. No.
Well, it's funny because we also, like, around the same time matched on Bumble, and we almost wanted to say, like, although we actually mostly talked on Tinder, we're like, we could say Bumble because Tinder has such a
has the like the hookup app.
Yeah, like, but like, it is what it is. It's Tinder. It brings people together who might actually get married. Like, it does.
My friend did. Yeah, it's happened.
But yeah, so yeah, it was odd dating in COVID because
it is weird. Yeah,
this was, I don't know, months in, and like couple months in, and you're like, it's a risk to meet someone. Like, you could get COVID or whatever. So we had a couple Zoom dates.
Okay, nice. I like it.
I said my parents live in like a pagoda or a gondola or whatever it's called, and there were the lights, and I like made sure to set up my
God, how cute.
And I was so nervous she was gonna be a catfish because she like hit everything I wanted. So when she actually showed up, I was so relieved, because that's horrible too when you're like invested in an idea and either they use false pictures.
Oh, I've reported like 4 people like I found catfishing on Hinge. Like,
right.
Yeah, it's something. So you had Zoom dates first, and then so how, like a couple, and then you met in person?
Yes, we did. I actually drove her over to her house, which is not something I would typically do.
But it's COVID too, and you probably felt comfortable at least because you did the Zoom thing,
Right, and I think, so I went over there, and it was, we set up on, she's a big lanai. We have a big lanai. We both live there now. But we like set up a table to almost look like at a restaurant. And we sat across and had the conversation. And it's so funny. She didn't think I liked her at first because I was so nervous. And when I do that, I give off no signals.
Yeah, right.
But eventually she's got this beautiful oak tree in the backyard, and I made my move by saying, let's go sit under the oak tree in the backyard. And we set out a blanket, and then I eventually shared like I was interested and, whatever.
Oh my God, that's so cute.
So that was the first date, and it'll be 2 years, end of April.
And did she propose?
We both proposed.
Okay, all right. I was like, I was wondering how that worked.
Yeah. So I had this huge elaborate thing planned out where I was going to create like a picnic at the first place we kiss under the tree. She guessed it, and I was so bummed because I had already I had been buying items and putting them in the closet, and I was, so eventually what I just did was I took a little note and I put go in the coffee ground holder of like a coffee pot. And I said, go over, and it said, please walk over to the Christmas tree. And underneath it was this book where it's like it's like a cartoon book with our faces on it. It tells our story of meeting and, what we love about each other. And at the very last page, it says, will you marry me? So this is like, we're talking, she said all she wanted to do was be surprised. I surprised her. It's like 7 a.m. She's up getting, making coffee. She goes to put the coffee ground, sees this paper. She goes, she reads this book, and I'm like peering from the corner. And she said yes. And then like a month or 2 later, she kept saying like, I want to go to bed early, which didn't sound like her because she's a night owl. But we got in bed. And then I look up, and in stars, she spelled out, glow-in-the-dark stars, will you marry me?
Oh my God. That's so cute.
Yeah, it was cute. So yeah, we both proposed.
I like it.
Yeah. And in being in a gay relationship, we have questions like, who's going to be the one that walks down the
Right.
aisle first?
Yeah.
Who's this? We're kind of like, whatever. We're trying to get past a lot of.
Do you have a date set for when you're getting married?
Yes. October 16th is our date.
Of this year?
Yes.
Nice.
So it'll be 2 years in April. So it'll be like 2 and however many months.
Okay.
I'm not good with math, but.
Is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap it up? Because I have a question for you to end on.
Okay. Well, I do want to mention just a couple more things I think are important that I learned. For example, giving each other the benefit of the doubt is important in relationships, rather than approach things with suspicion. Try and,
assume positive intent.
Yeah, like they are trying their best.
Right.
And so that's one thing. Another thing was if we get in conflict and we do start triggering each other, one thing we say is, just a heads up, the relationship is not on the table. Because, my head or her head will go to like, those places of like, she doesn't love me anymore.
Right. They're going to break up with me. Like
yes. So that is very helpful, couples. If you just say like, look, I know we're in conflict right now. I want you to know the relationship is not on the table. Yes, we're in conflict, but just put that out there.
Yeah, no, I think that's huge. Especially like I was telling Leah, I have an anxious attachment. So I go like to the worst. Like, so, I would probably be like, oh my God, like they don't want to be with me anymore, versus like you said, like the relationship's not on the table, even though this is a conflict, like it's not to that point where like this is the ending of a relationship. I think that's huge.
Right. Yeah, I think that could be really helpful for you or anybody. It's fun. I'm actually anxious ambivalent. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So it's like, I want you, but I'm keeping you at a distance.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I know you had, I think that's all I wanted to touch upon. And I statements instead of accusatory. Like just saying, if you're upset by your partner about something they did, say, what you did made me feel like, instead of like, you're always doing this, you're doing that. So just approach it from like, hey, this came up for me, this is how I feel. And it opens the room up also for them to say, this is not essentially what I meant, or this is where I'm coming from, rather than just, it's like accusatory versus I'm sharing my truth, but I'm leaving room for you to share your experience and we can work this through.
Yeah, no, I think that's huge. That's really good advice, because I think I could probably reflect and be like, okay, yeah, I totally done like, well, you're doing that, you know what I mean? Versus like, hey, when this happened, it made me feel really insecure, and like I'm not good enough or whatever. So no, that's huge. That's all really helpful. I'm like, I'm going to take this with me for whenever I get in another relationship, whenever that may be. But okay, we can wrap it up. So I would say, I would probably ask you, I don't want to put you on the spot, but like, you gave some great advice, if there's somebody currently kind of struggling and they want a relationship, but they're not like probably fully there, or they're working on themselves, like what advice would you give somebody? Like,
I just want to say, I guess, when you are in the right place, I had to do a lot of healing before I could be in this relationship. I think if you're not healed, or if there's a lot of issues, you might draw relationships that aren't healthy.
100%, yep.
But at least if you're grounded in yourself and you do draw someone who's unhealthy, then you can set boundaries and you can recognize those better. And but I guess I'll just, I just want to say, like, relationships actually can be easy when it's the right person.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a struggle. Someone actually can be invested in your well-being. When it is the right, someone once said to me, when it's the right relationship, it's not always a struggle. And I've found that to be true. Because the other person's doing work as well.
Right, yeah, exactly. So, and I think that's huge too, is that, it should be easy, but there are going to be struggles and conflict, and that's okay. It doesn't mean it's not a great relationship, but it's how you work through them, like you said, that make it that make all the difference, you know, when two whole people are working on it
Right.
together. So
Right. So I know saying love yourself, you have to love it sounds frou-frou sometimes, but it's true.
it is really true. Yeah.
Just, and you'll know when you're ready. And if you have a therapist or a friend, you know, I don't know. There's people you can bounce stuff off as well. But yeah, it's out there. So
yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it. I had so much fun. This is great advice. Like, there's a lot of stuff I'm taking away myself from these 2 episodes. So I really appreciate you coming on and being open, because it's not easy. So I really appreciate that. So thank you. All right, everybody. Well, we hope you enjoyed this 2-part series. Feel free, if you're watching on YouTube, to comment, like. You can email us at femfables@gmail.com. If anything resonated with Leah's story that helped you, please let us know. And we will see you guys on the next one. Bye.